at FEMA headquarters. Director, you had said that this would be a long ordeal and the worst will come after the fact, and this is proving it. What's the latest you could tell us?
Well, I just got off the phone with Governor Rosselló a little bit ago, and we're continuing to meet his goals of search and rescue, pushing forward a large amount of commodities in the form of meals and water. We also have multiple emergency generators of different capabilities being placed in different areas to bring up critical infrastructure such as hospitals. And so right now we're still in the life-saving rescue mode. And then hopefully we will push more into the life sustainment mode over the next 48 to 72 hours.
You know, Administrator, obviously complicating things in Puerto Rico is, and you touched on it with the generators and all of that, the fact that power could be out for quite some time. But when I hear the government there talking about months, is that true?
It's hard to estimate. So obviously we're still trying to obtain situational awareness as to the level of damage. And that's been tough to do today because of communications capabilities being knocked out. So as the information comes in, we'll be able to reassess and put together a plan. But, you know, FEMA is largely only responsible for the emergency power push to making sure that hospitals and critical facilities are back online. The greater rebuild of the power structure will be turned over to basically Puerto Rico, the Western Power Authority, as I understand it, in partnership with Department of Energy partners. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of work to repair, and hopefully when it's repaired, it's done at a higher resilient manner.
Well, no one is denying your resilient manner and that of the entire federal force. But I got to wonder, Administrator, I mean, given the rapidity of these storms and the fact they stick around and Maria is still a threat out there, how do you allocate your resources in an environment like this?
Well, we've been fortunate that Harvey and Irma, the timing of Harvey and Irma allowed us to regroup, allowed our search and rescue teams, allowed us to restock commodities, allowed our search and rescue teams to also regroup so that we could deploy them, you know, not only to the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, but we also were able to, on behalf of the White House, we sent 2 search and rescue units to Mexico as well to help out over the last 48 hours with search and rescue on the earthquake side.
I'm curious, Administrator. I was talking to a number of senators and congressmen back and forth on what's happening in their districts, states, in this case, the governor of Puerto Rico as well. Whether FEMA or the federal government should have more emergency money set aside, I'm often reminded it doesn't matter whether the money's there, the help is always there and the money comes later. But do you think, given the severity of this hurricane season, even though it's the most severe we've seen in a dozen years, that we should have a pool of capital readily available just in case?
Well, we do through the Disaster Relief Fund. The question is whether or not the Disaster Relief Fund is adequate based on what we've seen. And so after this event, I'm sure that there's going to be numerous after-action reporting processes that take place across the federal government. We have constant communication with our congressional partners and, you know, the Congress, and update them on a regular basis about cash flow and different things and you know, our ability to do the job. I have not once feared that we would not have the ability to push forward and do the life-saving response mission going forward. So, you know, the communication's excellent, and the Congress has been very supportive.
Finally, many are coming to find out in places like Florida, sir, and even in Houston, of course, with the flood, that they're not covered. Individual homeowners are not covered for flood and the type of things that happened here. What role does FEMA have then in that event? I mean, if they didn't get the insurance or didn't address the areas where they were in, they didn't think they needed the insurance, what's the role of FEMA in that event?
Right. So we've established, for example, in Harvey, Recovery Command, and we've been working very closely with Governor Abbott in Texas to create innovative programs to help, you know, understand what the state of Texas is entitled to, not just from FEMA, but from SBA, from HUD. How can we innovatively implement our recovery programs and the dollars to best help the unique situation in Texas? And so we're working with Governor Abbott around the clock to do that and to help people out. And no disaster is the same. So the way we attack Texas, you know, and apply assistance to Texas could be slightly altered in Florida because of the situation there being a lot different. Texas was a frustrating flood. You know, Florida was, you know, basically a run-of-the-mill Category 4 hit that destroyed by storm surge, and the water receded and came back. So each recovery approach is going to have to be tailored to meet the governor's demands. And what I'm really proud about with the state of Texas is the Governor Abbott has stepped up to the plate. He is owning recovery. We are there to support him, and we're pushing forward. But it's still going to be a long, drawn-out process. We can't just flip a switch and put routine back together, in the communities that were impacted.
All right, Brock Long, thank you very, very much. A FEMA administrator joining us on a FEMA